And here we are. We are back again. It is Monday, April 13th. This is, in case you don't know what you're listening to or on the video feed if you're watching, this is Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias. This is my partner in cinema crime, Greg Srisavasdi.
Very good.
I thank you
Yes.
so much. And once again, another full show today. Before we jump into it, though, I have to give a huge shout out to all the talent that keeps, coming onto the show, asking to come on the show and supporting us, as well as all the publicists and all the listeners out there. It was amazing last night. I was moderating a Q&A down at the Arclight, and some people actually came up to me and were telling me that we listen to the show. We love the show. So
just get that guy out of the show, though. We love Brian.
No.
Oh, yeah, they were saying, we love the engineer Brian. He does such a great job.
We love the engineer Brian, and we love Greg.
Okay.
Of course, my attorney loves you, so.
Thank you.
My attorney loves your sense
So
of
that
humor.
Moderation, that Q&A panel, that thing went well. Across the Sea, right?
It was for Across the Sea. We talked to the directors, Ezra and Nissan, last week live.
Mm-hmm.
And last night, I spoke with the incredible cinematographer, John Carey.
Nice.
And you know how I raved about the cinematography on that film.
Yeah.
And got a lot of inside scoop from John on what was happening and what his thoughts were in designing the look of that film. And also one of the producers, Alvaro Valente, who is no stranger to Slamdance. And he has had films in Slamdance before. He has his hands in all these films with a very international feel. Across the Sea, set in Turkey. He's got another one coming up that was just shot in South Korea about North Korea, which could prove quite interesting.
Very interesting, yeah.
So there's a lot of good things that are going to be happening and coming up.
Do you get a quick feel on just a slam dance enthusiast, the crowd? Is it just a diverse array of movie fans?
This was a really interesting crowd, and I think it's because of the very nature of the film. A lot different than the crowd that was there for their opening night of Jake the Snake.
I would assume a different crowd.
Yeah. A much more mature crowd, but a very interested crowd in story and in film, as opposed to the experience of, seeing Jake the Snake on screen.
Yeah.
Or Joe Manganiello moderating the Q&A,
Yeah, that's a visual feast.
That's more.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to
Landscapes and humans, same thing.
Hey, I've interviewed Joe a few times and had a one-on-one with him after Sabotage last year, and
cool.
before his directorial debut with La Bear and before his book came out, and one of the nicest guys around. But it is a very visual feast. So,
cool.
But we've got some feasting of our own today. Paul Rachman, programmer for Slamdance, the Arclight-Slamdance Cinema Club, and an accomplished and award-winning editor and filmmaker in his own right. Paul may have two segments with us today. He'll be calling in at 11:15 live. At 11:30, and every week until May 9th, we're going to be talking about with some of the legends of TV, film, and stage in support of the Stage LA benefit at the Saban on May 9th. To Broadway from Hollywood with Love. Last week we had the immortal Carol Cook.
Memorable. Very enthusiastic and energetic. I was a bit intimidated in a good way.
Carol is a force of nature.
Yes.
And this week we've got equally memorable Nancy Dussault is going to be calling in at 11:30, and she'll be talking about many things. Undoubtedly, some of them will include Too Close for Comfort.
Okay, cool.
And maybe we'll have Paul back for the second half of the show. If not, we've got lots of my exclusive with Kriv Stenders, the director of the absolutely hilarious dark comedy that's out right now with Simon Pegg, Kill Me 3 Times. Have you seen it yet?
Yes, I really enjoyed that movie. It's kind of a film noir, desert, western.
A la
hitman.
Seven Psychopaths.
A la Seven Psychopaths. Seven Psychopaths. Very underrated film. Yeah.
Very much so. But Kill Me Three Times is just tremendous and shot on the western coast of Australia on the ocean, which is still one of nature's greatest untapped resources of beauty.
And just a different look at Simon Pegg as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. Considering my first real look at Simon Pegg was when he did David Schwimmer's directorial debut, Run, Fat Boy, Run.
I haven't seen that yet.
You have to see it.
Okay.
You have to see it. That's all I can say. You have to see it.
Tandy Newton's in it, I think.
Tandy Newton's in it. So, and David did an amazing job for his first film, which he then followed up when he directed the very powerful Trust.
Yes, 2 different films.
2 very different films. So, but before we get into Mr. Rachman and talking about Slamdance and Arclight-Slamdance Cinema Club and S.T.A.G.E, you've got a real treat for us today.
You know, I just cut up a soundbite. I interviewed William Shatner a couple of weeks ago. He's promoting this stop-motion animated show called Clangers for the Sprout Network. It premieres in June on that show Sunny Side Up. And I asked him the question. I didn't ask him a Star Trek question, although I wanted to, but I asked him how his, with his work in music and stage with that one-man show and acting and directing, if his vision or his approach to storytelling has changed over the years. And he gave a pretty good answer.
And
I think everybody from 2 years old to 102 recognizes the truth in what you're saying, if there's a validity to what you're saying. If you've acquired whatever the writer has written as a truth, if you understand the validity of what he's written or she's written, that it communicates itself in the same way that talking to a child of 3, they understand that truth. So talking to a child of 3 is merely saying, here's the truth, child, as against saying to you, here's the truth, young man. It's just a tone, but the validity of what I'm saying is always there.
That's very astute.
Yeah, and he's looking at me while he's saying the validity and truth, and I'm realizing, well, he has much more validity and truth than I can ever have, but it's really about what you bring to the story, and it'll transmit. That believability, I think, will transmit.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And in coming weeks, we will have some screenwriters joining us to talk about the belief and validity of story.
Oh, I had no idea. That's a very...
I'm just all full of surprises. Hey, you surprised me this morning with... I've got a William Shatner interview here. It's like, James Tiberius Kirk, you bet your bottom dollar.
You know, it is a cliche, and it's a well-worn and actually true cliche that if you don't believe it, people won't believe it.
Yeah.
So I just thought, coming from Mr. Shatner, it actually holds a little bit more weight.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because that whole idea of you don't believe it, people won't believe it. That's one thing that we can see so much of when we're looking at films, when we're reviewing films,
Right.
whether the performance resonates.
Yeah.
Do we believe that? And generally it's because, if we don't believe it, it's because the actor doesn't believe what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a theme that runs through, many.
Which is why I loved 5 to 7, that romantic drama.
Yes!
Starring Anton Yelchin and Berenice Marlowe. If you haven't seen it, it's out on VOD right now in select theaters. So 5 to 7. It's very believable, actually.
It is. I mean, I am in love with that film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but why don't we talk a little more about Kill Me Three Times?
Yeah, you know what?
Since we both love it.
Yeah, the thing I really enjoyed about Kill Me Three Times, it kind of is a blend of so many different genres, where it's set out in Australia, right?
Western Coast,
Western Coast, and it's beautiful to look at, great desert landscapes, but it also has kind of a film noir-ish kind of existential tinge to it as well. And then they throw in some comedy, which is kind of cool.
And it's very dark black comedy.
Yeah.
And which creates this beautiful juxtaposition between, the beauty and the light of the sand, the surf, the sea, the aqua waters, the blue skies, the sun, and then the darkness of this fueling the undertones of the story itself.
Yeah, it is dark, but I think mainly the the attitude of Kill Me Three Times, even though it is pretty violent, there's, I hate to say it, there's kind of a weird kind of light touch to it as well.
Yeah.
So.
Very much so. And having said that, let's hear what the wonderful director, Kriv Stenders, had to say about that creating that juxtaposition. How did you find this juxtaposition and develop it?
Well, it was, it's really interesting because, you know, when I read the script, I went, oh wow, this is so much fun. This is a movie that I can just relax with and have fun with and not be slave to some kind of authenticity. And it was just one of those great opportunities to just create a movie world, what I call a movie world. And it's kind of like a bit like a fairy tale in that anything can happen, and it has its own rules. And as you said, it has a timeless quality to it. So, and that was very deliberate. So I just love the idea of creating this kind of universe for these 6 characters. And the great advantage was that Screen West, who are the state film funding body, gave us a large chunk of change to come over and shoot over there.
How nice of them.
We just had this fantastic theatre, this great stage in which to set the story on. So it was a very simple, straightforward process of going, right, okay, it's beautiful. It's basically the 3 colours will be the blue of the sky, the aqua green of the water, and the red blood. And that was the palette, and it was just great to sort of keep multiplying on that or building on that template.
And that's, I think he succinctly, did capture what he wanted to do.
Yeah, the movie has a lot of really cool elements to it. One of the cool elements is the casting of, especially if you like movies like Against All Odds and FX, just the casting of Brian Brown.
That, and actually later on in the show today, we will hear Kriv talk about the casting of Brian Brown. I mean, it's just one of the fun elements of the film. And in a couple weeks, you'll hear part of my interview with Luke Hemsworth, because between Chris Hemsworth in Avengers on May 1st, Liam Hemsworth in Cut Bank, which is on VOD now.
Love that film, by the way.
Love that film. And Luke Hemsworth in Kill Me Three Times. Yeah. The 3 Hemsworth boys will be battling for your box office dollars. And I actually did have a chance to ask Luke, which brother should moviegoers support? So it's quite interesting what he will have to say about that. But that's for a couple weeks, because I think we'll time it to the Avengers and see if the older brother can get a leg up on the younger brother.
You know what's great? You have all these. It's like you have a vault filled with interviews that I don't even know about, and you're just surprising me right now. So it's a good thing. I like it. So. Well,
see, if I had more time, I would have brought out part of my Bill Shatner interview and brought it today.
Don't one up me, please. No kidding.
No, mine's from a couple years ago.
How was that? How did that go? Your Shatner interview?
When I interviewed him a couple years ago.
Was that for Shatner's World, his one-man show? Or?
No, I interviewed him when he did the voicing for the animated film that I'm blanking on, the Weinstein film.
Let me check.
I thank God for you and your little laptop here.
My little laptop.
Your little laptop, yeah, Weinstein film.
Okay, but anyways,
Aaron Zigman did the score. Okay. No, it was lovely, and it was funny because Bill and I actually got to catch up. Because we first met 34 years ago.
Okay.
When I had first come out to L.A., his hairdresser, was on Ventura Boulevard, and he would go into the Sambo's coffee shop sometimes, and we would be in there. And
Sambo's coffee shop. Wow.
George Takei would be there.
That's amazing.
Walter Koenig would be there, and a friend of Walter's would be there. So it would be, and that was the first time Bill and I ever met, and we would see each other quite often in Sambo's.
That's great.
And then I actually did some work on a TJ Hooker.
Okay.
I worked on Hooker on Second Unit a few episodes, so I got to see, not only Bill, but Jimmy Darren, who I interviewed at length last year for the Stage LA benefit.
Great singer.
He was sick. He
Yeah.
couldn't make that. He's performing this year.
Oh, awesome.
So
Yeah.
I'll be pulling out some of maybe some of Jimmy's stuff as we also reminisced,
that's
because
great.
we actually go back. The first time he ever saw me and met me, I was 3 or 4 years old on the set of American Bandstand in Philadelphia.
Yeah, you have a definite through line here.
So when you see everything
So-
coming full circle, it's so much fun. But yeah, Bill and I had a great time when we got to catch up, and then I did, some little stuff helping promote his horse show for charity that he does every year.
Okay, cool.
But
Yeah.
no, I adore him.
I think this was my first time interviewing him. I was surprised that he was really friendly and really self-effacing, actually.
Yeah.
Yet confident as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, he is so much fun, and I just adore him, and I love the journey that he's taken. And also, as part of the Star Trek journey,
Yeah.
Sally Kellerman, who is appearing at Stage and who I just interviewed, and actually my interview with her will be out probably this afternoon.
Okay.
People don't realize this. Sally was the female femme fatale for James Tiberius Kirk in Bill Shatner's pilot episode for Star Trek.
That I did not know. Okay.
So, as Sally readily admits, without her, Sally Kellerman, being involved in Star Trek, we
Right.
might never. James Kirk might never have turned out to be the womanizer he became.
Womanizer, I consider it well-seasoned traveler.
Well-seasoned
I
traveler.
prefer that word.
Through the galaxy.
Through the yeah.
Through the cosmos. And speaking of cosmos, we're going through the cosmos now, and I have the wonderful, incredible programmer and editor, Paul Rachman, on the line.
Hello.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me.
Now, are you here in LA or are you back in New York right now?
I'm in New York right now.
Well,
You caught me in New York, but I'm back and forth a lot.
I know, because you're doing, you're editing, you're filmmaking now, and you actually you program not only at Slamdance, but were you not involved in the programming of the Arclight-Cinema Slamdance Club?
Well, yeah, a little bit. The Arclight Cinema Club is now monthly, which is great. But we've been programming Slamdance, what we've called Slamdance on the road, for years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an extension of that. But I've also been programming similar screenings at the IFC Center here in New York for Slamdance for like the last 10 years. So it's something we've been going on. But the Arclight Cinema Club, the monthly, having the monthly venue, right in Hollywood is great. It's funny, it's something Slamdance's been looking for like 22 years.
And don't you wish
in our home city in LA, and it finally happened.
Hey, don't you wish that they had that when you had your films at Slamdance?
Oh yeah, that would have been awesome. that would have been, amazing. It's just an amazing venue, and it's a great place for Slamdance to find support. And the audience is coming, so it's working. There's one tonight, actually. Dennis Rodman's a documentary. One of our more provocative and interesting docs, Dennis Rodman's Big Bang in Pyongyang, which is really this kind of behind-the-scenes, almost fly-on-the-wall look at his second trip to Pyongyang. And it was directed by an Irish director, Colin Offland. And that's tonight. So,
and that's an interesting mix right there. Irish director Dennis Rodman in North Korea.
Yeah. No, it makes it special.
Now, how do you? Now, I moderated the Q&A last night for Across the Sea. Stunning film. And I understand I'm going to be doing some more of your little gems that you have programmed in here. What do you look for as a programmer, be it for whether you're programming for IFC in New York, whether you're programming for Slamdance on the Road, or whether you're programming for the new Cinema Club?
Well, the Slamdance on the Road and the Cinema Club is primarily an extension of the film festival. So we'll reach back from, the current festival, the most current festival, all the way back to 22 years of Slamdance to find films to bring back on the road. Slamdance isn't a festival that's ever been genre dependent. Like, we've never been a festival that, like, we're about romantic comedies, or we're about horror films, or we're very, very eclectic. It's the Slamdance is programmed by people who've been involved with the festival, mainly alumni from the festival, both writers, directors, producers, actors, all filmmakers who've been connected to Slamdance in some way in terms of what it's about, program the festival. So it's really about finding, those films that tell a great story, that hit you a certain way. It's very subjective. That's kind of how it's done.
Is there anything that last week I know we were talking to Ezra and Nissan about Across the Sea, and one of the and Ezra is a repeat participant at Slamdance and repeat winner. So one of the things that she pointed out, she described Slamdance and all the ventures, all the tentacles that it's using to reach out to moviegoers and to expand the cinematic experience. She described Slamdance as being fearless.
Well, that's great. No, that is fearless. There's many ways of understanding that. I mean, I think part of the way the festival was founded was definitely fearless. I mean, we were just like, screw this. We're taking our own films. We're going to Park City, and we're going to show up, and we're going to get noticed. And so in a way, the roots of it in that sense are fearless. But I think when, independent filmmaking is fearless. The type of films that Slamdance programs, the types of filmmakers that come to Slamdance, mainly first-time filmmakers, you have to be fearless to get a movie done. Mm-hmm. So I think, we've always tried to come up with our own ideas, our own ways of doing things. We've been able to survive for 22 years in Park City. There's kind of an ingrained fearlessness. It's a little bit of a punk attitude, I guess, that keeps it moving forward. But that's a good way of describing it. But you got to be fearless and not stupid, I guess. And I think that's what we try to be.
Paul, just wondering, even with just the advent and the rise of digital filmmaking and easier access to Final Cut Pro and editing on your maybe laptop, is it still for indie filmmakers still a swimming upstream process as far as getting their film made? Even with better, more access to technology, it's still a hard process.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the tools have been great. So it's created more physical accessibility to the tools, and I think a lot of people are making films, at a cost or for nothing, quote unquote. But it's still hard to get. There's so many different types of energies go into making a film, and it's so hard to grapple all that. There's the technical side, there's the creative side, the actual creating, finding a great story and implementing that story with other people onto, a production and into characters and then, exposing those characters into a frame and then cutting them together. It's an enormous, enormous process. So that never changes. It's always an upstream battle. I think that it's become more crowded in the one sense, and that adds to some of the difficulty. But the good stuff, good material with positive, great people who are used to can swim upstream healthily, they'll survive and they'll get their films made. That's the way I see it.
I was talking to Peter Baxter last night, one of your partners in crime, And we were talking about editing, and especially because editing is one of your big fortes.
Yeah, my background was as an editor when I first started.
Now, have you seen in films that get submitted at the festival level and that are emerging as being fan favorites, audience favorites, and are making the circuits, do you see that because of technology that we're losing some of the cinematic edge and some of the smoothness and the beauty that we saw for years with traditional editing? Not too many filmmakers are doing montages, superimpositions, fades, swipes. Mm-hmm. Generally, most edits now are hard, short, fast cuts or cut to black.
Mm-hmm. I think this is true. I mean, I think that's a trend that started that started evolving quicker since the music video MTV days. You really started to see things getting cut quicker. But it was still for the big screen. I think most recently what I'm seeing in the editorial washdown process, as I call it, is I think, the advent of the smaller screen, whether it's iPads, iPhones, or the television screen, and this whole thing of TV being so hot and being the next cinema is kind of madness, because it's really not. I think a lot of editing in the last 2-3 years have come back down to, let's make it so everybody can understand it on the small screen, and you're down to these, talking heads talking to each other, pushing plot. So everything is kind of becoming television, whereas cinema was always the extreme opposite of that. How can you avoid telling the story with any talking heads talking to each other? So that's what I see a lot. I don't think the technology is to blame anymore. It's not like the tools allow you to cut differently or faster. I think that the tools of how people are watching films and how people are making it for this kind of cross-platform and devices is affecting editing as well.
Mm-hmm. I just have this very curious question, Paul. I have a good friend, and I never asked him this question, but he's a DP, and I asked him what influenced his work and his compositions, and he said, well, I'm a huge, avid fan of punk rock and its genre, and he used to play for a band as well, and he goes, everything I do is infused in my DP work. I'm just wondering, for you, with all those facets of filmmaking, how has that influenced your filmmaking?
Well, I started my filmmaking in the kind of hardcore punk world. I was in that, I was exposed to that world. I was like a freshman in college, and I was kind of hanging out with like high school kids from the area in Boston where I was in school, and they were doing all these kind of, it was the birth of hardcore. And there was kind of an ethos, a very DIY, the DIY movement has its roots there, and there was this ethos of like, let's just do this stuff ourselves and put it out ourselves. And I picked up cameras and started shooting those bands. And eventually I wanted to be a music video director, and that's what I did, for part of my career in L.A. in the late 80s, early 90s, directing music videos. So that whole world, that there is a certain ethos, a way of thinking, a way of doing things that gets, if you spend several years in any of those communities as a punk rocker in the hardcore community, you just get embedded with this sense of, do it any way you can. And I think that that's kind of a way of thinking that a lot of people who have been exposed to that are have in common. So, yeah, there is a bit of that.
Now, with your whole background in music videos, and I know 34 years ago, early in my production career, I was doing a lot of music videos, not working on any of the harder core stuff, working on things like Rick Springfield videos. Do you find that music video is getting to be a lost art? Is it changing and taking the shape so often in the form of opening titles for films?
Yeah, it had a big influence at a certain time. It's definitely still present. And I think there's a big comeback in music videos with YouTube and stuff. I think people are making them for YouTube. But, they're framed and edited differently for YouTube. I'm noticing this trend of certain medium shots. And, so technically I look at that too. But I think that's a big deal. I think people get a lot of views, a lot of exposure through these mediums, at one point all the eyeballs were on MTV, all the teen eyeballs. And, I remember that. And then the eyeballs went away. Right now all the eyeballs are on YouTube. And, in all likelihood, they'll go away from there eventually and go somewhere else. But I think music video is still alive. I think people still love doing them. I haven't done any in years. I did, over 100 music videos over the 8, 9, 10-year period. And it was awesome during those days. And I think it's different now. But as long as there's music, there's always going to be music videos,
Do you see a shift coming in terms of the way things are edited, instead of things being edited with this whole YouTube concept in mind, or with this multi-platform itty-bitty smartphone screen in mind? Do you see it coming back to the bigger picture, shall we say?
Well, yeah, I have to live. I always live. Everything is cyclical. And you always hope that it stays that way. That cycles will go away, things will get burnt out, and go back to what things were the way. There's a cycle, and I do think that. Everything is so hot on this YouTube and television is where it's at, and television is where the money's at, and television this, television that people are going to go, man, there's so much freaking television, then it starts to get bad, and then you start to get bored with it, and people, then all of a sudden a couple of great movies will have a chance to really shine because everything else is so bad, and then you go back to cinema. So I hope those cycles happen and continue, but I think, and listen, there's all these directors like Chris Nolan and Quentin Tarantino. They're all still shooting on film. They're pushing to save all that, So, it's funny how in these digital worlds, what tends to happen, and I have yet to see how it's really going to apply to film. But in music, vinyl has made a huge comeback, and it's a audiophile thing. Can there be something like that with cinema? We'll see.
It'd be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah, it has to be really big though for it to really be anything, because it's such an expensive art form. It needs the audience.
Now, with your technical expertise, is that something that you implement when you're fighting for films that you want to get programmed at Slamdance? Do you look more at story or?
Yeah, no, I think I don't. Yeah, it's really about story and impact. And am I entertained? Am I affected? Is this film speaking to me? I got to say, technically, for young filmmakers who are trying to get into their first film festivals, or for any type of movie, really, the first 20 minutes of your film are crucial. Just crucial, because if you're not successfully setting up what your film is about and drawing people in the first 20 minutes, it's the odds are already hugely against you.
Are there? Do you have any favorites that you've seen come out of Slamdance that still stay with you, or any favorites from the big screen that have influenced you and your perspective?
Well, it's such a hard question. My favorites are always shifting and changing, but there was a few films early on at Slamdance that still stick with me. Daniel Harris's Bible and Gun Club was a film that won the Grand Jury Prize and was so cool and provocative for its time. It was basically a narrative take on the Maisel brothers' Salesman, the documentary. But it was about these guys out in Vegas who sell guns and Bibles. And that whole kind of messed up world. So that's a great movie.
That That's just a great image when you say it that way.
Well, yeah, it's a great movie. And then Surrender Dorothy was a great, memorable film. I every time somebody asks me the favorites question, my mind goes blank. It's like an automatic trigger. But I tend to gravitate always towards cinema from the 70s, early 80s. I'm always revisiting those eras, 60s. I try to go. I watch a lot of old films. I watch a lot of old movies. It's interesting how everybody's saying like, oh yeah, everything is just going to be subscription, everything's on. I got to say, like 60-70% of the stuff I want to watch sometimes I can only find on DVD somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no way you can find this stuff streaming. And these are not obscure. I was trying to watch The Last Detail a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
The Hal Ashby movie.
A superb film.
And I'm like, damn, this movie is not streaming anywhere. I can't even watch it if I wanted to with any kind of digital device. I'd have to have a DVD player.
Now, can I watch Four Dogs Playing Poker on a streaming device, or do I have to go out and buy
No,
it?
Four Dogs Playing Poker is... Well, actually, it's going to come. The producers are actually going to... That was an early 2000 film. That was the first movie I directed, and I was hired as a director. And that is going to come out digitally, from what I understand.
Oh, cool.
I don't have a date for you, but it's not available. It was back in those days. That was acquired. That was bought by Showtime, and Warner Home Video did the DVD. And those deals are over. So
Four dogs are just lying in a pound somewhere, just waiting.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll surface.
Oh
someday.
my! So, what do we have to look forward to throughout the rest of this first course of Cinema Club through the summer? Can you divulge anything?
So tonight is Dennis Rodman's Big Bang in Pyongyang. Definitely entertaining. Tonight's going to be a fun night at Slamdance at the Arclight. Then next week, there's an Italian documentary called Trees That Walk, and it's all about trees and the earth. So that's it's actually a really great documentary. So I highly recommend that. And then we have some more dates coming up in later April and throughout the whole summer.
Yeah.
It's going to be year-round. I think that we keep booking the shows as we go. We book them about a month or two in advance.
Okay.
I don't have any more titles yet, but we'll be there, and then we'll be doing some Slamdance on the road in New York at the IFC Center in New York, probably sometime in June and in the fall.
Oh,
and if you go to the Slamdance website, you can see Slamdance on the road. And last year we played in well over a dozen cities. We brought these films, so just trying to keep movies in the cinema.
Which is where they should be to begin with.
Yeah.
Paul, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This has been absolutely fascinating.
Oh, then thank you. This has been fun.
I mean, and I hope that as you get more titles and you find out more and, Slamdance on the road and with the Cinema Club, that you will keep us in the loop and join us again from time to time.
Sure, yeah. Just
and if you ever get another film made, if you ever get another film of your own made,
Oh yeah, no, that's happening. I'm finishing one and starting another, so we can talk about that when they're ready.
Terrific.
And I will stream American Hardcore, right? I can stream that.
American Hardcore, yeah, you can stream that. That's got a legitimate distributor.
Awesome.
So that is readily available on multiple platforms.
And not pirated. Legitimate. There's money involved.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, that's one of those events that you win at, and then some you win, some you lose.
Well, you're going to you'll have to call back in the future and quiz him on it to make sure he really watched it.
Yeah. Okay. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're taking a short break, and we'll be right back.
Behind the Lens is sponsored in part by the Culver City Observer. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. culvercityobserver.com.
And we are back. And now, although we've been running a little bit late today, I have the wonderful Nancy Dussault on with me.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Nance. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm a little late in calling you, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, we had a lovely filmmaker and a programmer for Slamdance that, you know, has many, many things to talk about to fill time. You know how live is. You know, you go with the flow.
That's right. That's right. I was so excited because I got a couple of other jobs to do and was emailing my little brain out, and that takes me a while.
Wait, jobs as in film
Yeah.
and TV appearances?
No.
Oh.
These are all fixed things, which is great. So,
Okay.
yeah. How are you?
I'm fine. It's been so long, a whole 4 days since we last spoke.
I know it.
And this is just, I thank you so much for joining us to talk about S.T.A.G.E. You know, you got a tough act to follow after Carol last week.
Oh boy, I can imagine. She's a dear friend, and I'm always she quite I'm going to say intimidates me. She is so quick and so witty and so wonderful, and she's of course one of the highlights of the S.T.A.G.E. benefit every year. So. As she should be.
Well, I got to tell you, you're one of the highlights, not only for me, but other people that I've been talking to, telling them that you are going to be performing and appearing this year. And they're they are just thrilled, and everybody remembers you for, you know, the younger generation, the crowds that I see, they remember you for Too Close for Comfort and all the reruns that they are watching.
Which is great. You know, it really is great. I mean, they've run the whole series. I don't even get that channel because I'd actually kind of like to see them.
Well, gee, that's why I keep putting up with Time Warner Cable, so I get that channel.
That's right. Yeah, and Antenna, I believe it is. But anyway, it's been great. I now have, because of it, I now have a fan club, and they're all so darling. And I said, God, I really wished I'd had you about 30 years ago. But I'm really grateful I have you now.
Oh, do you know what the average age of your fan club members are?
I don't. I think they range from their 20s to like into their 40s.
Wow, that is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
You know,
so I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. This is a woman who does not Twitter or do all those things. So this is all on Facebook and doing it all that way.
Nancy's
do you Twitter? Do you do all those things?
You know, unfortunately, I have to, but as my cohort here, as Greg always tells me, he's trying to make me more social media savvy. It's like Facebook was a big step for me. Twitter was an even bigger step. Now I'm trying to figure out this Google Plus and Pinterest. Yeah. I have no clue.
I know I signed up for Pinterest, and they give me notices, but I don't know how to activate what I'm interested in. You know, to keep it on my.
Okay, well,
anyway, but I'm trying. You know, I'm actually going to call a young student I have, a vocal student, have her come out and get me a little hit. My husband gets a little impatient trying to help me stay with it. So,
well, once you figure out, you can tell me because I'm.
Okay. Nancy, is part of the joy in what you do in your profession is sharing your craft, whether it being a life on the stage or acting for television. You can actually share your wealth of knowledge with students from all walks of life.
That's right. That is right. And I like that. I mean, I've been working a long time. I started working professionally when I was about 16, when I was in college. And, you know, it took me a long time to know that how much I knew or what I had learned. And I was always encouraged to start teaching, and I think that's when I kind of understood everything better, including myself. So it's really been quite a trip for me. I still like the theater the best. I think. I mean, television has been great.
Yes.
And actually, it got to a point where my manager said, if you don't come out to L.A. and do more television, I'm having trouble getting you jobs in the theater because they want people who've been on TV who are, instantly recognizable. So, and I lucked out. I came out to L.A. to get a series, and I got one right away. So
You sure did.
That was a really lucky break.
But, you were on the very cutting edge, breaking the glass ceiling back in 1975 when you were co-hosting Good Morning America with David Hartman. You were one of the groundbreakers for this morning, TV chat.
Oh, I know it. It was so interesting when that happened. I kept getting a call from ABC, and I thought the gentleman who was calling me, I thought he was going to ask me to do another benefit, and I'd been doing so many, and I didn't return the call right away, which of course is extremely unprofessional. And I went out to L.A., and then I got another call, and then I went back to New York, and then by this time almost a week had gone by, and finally I returned the call, and when he told me what it was, I was absolutely stunned. And I said, how did my name even come up for a job like this? And it was from being on talk shows. And so when I had to audition for it, I went and met all the heads of ABC, and then they had me do an audition with David Hartman, who I knew, which I think was a huge plus. And what he did was he interviewed me, and then I interviewed him, and then they had me do commercials, because I used to do commercials on the show, too. And then we started. I think there was a week, and then we started. It was really, really rough and scary at the beginning. And I had to write stuff. I had to do the weather sometimes, and that was a joke.
There's something about Nancy Dussault as a weather girl that really just I remember when you did it. But
it was because what happened was the man in Chicago, something happened to him because he always did it, and so for a few days I had to do it. And they have, you don't see what you're talking about. It's all done with that blue screen, and at least at that time.
Yeah.
So it was a joke. I'd be pointing at South Dakota instead of Florida, it was like a comedy routine. It was really like a comedy routine.
So will you be? Will you bring?
And it was what was interesting, and what people don't know at that time. That show, and I think it still is. It was not under the news department; it was under entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So and they really wanted to try something different. It was what made it so difficult was they only had 4 writers on a 2-hour show. So I came in one morning at 5, and they said, "Would you write the Hollywood this and write this?" And I went, "Write." What do you mean, right? And they would send me out to do interviews where I had no producer, no nothing. It was me and a cameraman. I hardly even knew what I was supposed to, zero in on. What the interview was supposed to be really about. And then later I learned that I should have gone to editing all the time. It was so much coming at me that it was. And I was exhausted every moment. I wasn't used to getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning, so it was a strain in a way. But God, I got to meet everybody.
Well, and it's given you, the legs on which your longevity in this industry has sustained you.
I think so. Because that does we talked about it before. Mm-hmm. That becomes what the business for everyone is about. I got which is lucky, I got every first job I ever went out on. But then it becomes, your whole career then becomes how to keep yourself going, how to reinvent yourself, how to, spread out, how to make yourself constantly interesting and
mm-hmm.
and desirable, people to want you. And that becomes a real challenge. And that's today, when younger people ask me about the business and how to get in it, I don't have a lot of answers for them because it's so different now.
Yeah, very much
they
so.
Sure are they're really creative, I'll have to say.
So how creative are you and David Galligan going to be on May 9th for your performance for S.T.A.G.E? How are those rehearsals coming?
That's a wonderful question because I'm not sure yet. Because this show is going to be very different because they're doing, as you know, from songs that were movies originally that eventually became a Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're doing She Loves Me from that musical, which is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. And, I mean, they're doing a real little setup for it, like a little scene. And we haven't, I have a rehearsal this week. I can tell you more on Friday. But it is going to be a little more inventive for me and David than normal, So, and he always, which I like, he always lets me talk a little bit before I sing. I mean, that's kind of evolved. I mean, Carol does that always.
Carol does that, whether Carol would be allowed to do that or not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And everyone loves it, and they let her and love it. I like to do it just because if I'm anxious or nervous, because I do still get nervous, it helps me calm down, and it helps me. I just like it. I just like it, So, and I'm not talking about a long thing, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I really am not sure what all we're doing yet, but I know what I'm singing, and
that's always a plus.
That's a big plus. And I even know the song, and that's a big plus.
That's an even bigger plus.
Yeah, it's going to be a great evening, and I know I said this to you before that this is the best deal in town if people really want to be entertained and do something worthwhile at the same time, because the cast of performers is extraordinary. And for me, and I bet it's the same for you, there is nothing like seeing people live perform.
Live performance.
I mean, I love television, and I'm somewhat of an television addict, but I really love to see real people
and
at the moment.
There's nothing like seeing a songstress or a singer perform live, especially in a theater like the Saban with such incredible acoustics. You're in a beautiful setting. You have that whole ambient tone that's set. And then the song, the voice just fills every cavern.
Yeah. It's a big place.
It's so beautiful. I was talking to Sally Kellerman, who's also performing for Stage. She's never performed at Saban before. She's gone there, but she's never performed.
Yeah. That'll be fun for her. I'll be eager to see her again because she's so bloody interesting. She's wonderful. So
well, and she's doing a Sondheim piece.
Oh.
You don't get to, but she is. Forget about
What is she doing? What is she doing? Do you know?
I do, and offhand, I can't remember what she told me, but I know she's been working with her longtime arranger, Bob Epstein, and with David, because it's got a lot of high notes, low notes, a lot of musical wrangling going on.
Yeah.
As most Sondheim pieces do.
Oh, yeah. Well, she'll be fine. She's so used to. She's a great cabaret performer.
Yeah.
And a great performer. So she'll do it. I like doing something that I'm. Of course I have learned things for these benefits, but I do like the comfort. I must confess of something that is kind of really in my voice and I'm used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I can really have more fun.
Yeah.
Just a curious question, Nancy. When you're part of a production or a performance that really connects with the audience, is there a way to describe that kind of feeling where it kind of merges? You can actually feel that organic emotion.
There is. It took me a long time to. I mean, I think I really learned it the best when I finally started doing cabaret, because there you really have to look at people, and you have to establish a relationship almost immediately with an audience. When you're in a play or a musical, it's sort of a different kind of relationship. But something I've noticed lately, and tell me if you've noticed this too, and I have to confess it drives me crazy. It's a new direction, and I blame the directors, because everyone's wearing a microphone. Whenever they're doing an intimate scene or something serious, they have people just facing each other and talking, so that the audience sees nothing but profiles.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't see their eyes, you can't see their mouth, you can hear them, but I think for me, it kind of alienates me as being in the audience. I mean, they do this a lot now, where they stay in that position for quite a while. Of course, when I started in the business, you didn't wear a microphone. I was one of my first few big jobs with the New York City Opera, and then I did musicals there. You know, this gigantic theater.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to make sure that you aimed your face out quite often. You know, and that even got to be where you really had to pick and choose times to make sure that the audience could see you,
Yeah.
and see your face. Have you noticed that?
Very much.
It may not bother.
It's very much so, and it is disturbing because and I think it takes a lot out of an actor's infusing their personal performance, their personal self. And I am now I'm getting nasty hand signals from my sound engineer, Nancy. We're out of time.
Oh, shoot, because I didn't really address his question. Anyway, when you really feel that immediacy, when you know you're connecting with the audience, there's nothing like it.
Wow.
It really makes you thrive to be better. Anyway, so we're out of time. Okay.
Yeah, everybody can see how much better you are if they come to the Saban on May 9th for S.T.A.G.E LA to Broadway from Hollywood with Love.
Thank you for telling everybody about it. It's real important. Thank you.
It's very important. Thank you so much, Nancy, and I'll see you on the 9th.
Okay, it's a deal. Bye, honey.
Bye. And that's it. We are out of time. And we will be back next week. I'll have Jake Simpson with me, I think. I will have John Huertas, Castles, Javi. This is almost as exciting as Alan Tudyk. I'm sorry.
I'll see you in 2.
And you'll see me in 2 because you're going to be off and being a good son.
Yes.
And that week maybe we'll be talking about a few other things, and we'll pick up next week with some more on Kill Me 3 Times, Age of Adeline, and we'll start talking about Inside Out for Pixar. That's it. It's a wrap.